You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela, episode number 67.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zechmann.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. Hey Marchelle, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. I'm not loving the rain, but
we have rain. I'm back in, I was in Atlanta last week. I'm back in Washington now, and this rain feels even worse after having been in the sun in Atlanta.
I know, I was expecting to bring some sunshine back.
Oh, well, I did for a couple of days, and then we just got socked with this. I don't know. It's like the rain can really get to you sometimes. So those of you who live in other parts of the world where it's not typically raining, be glad. Be glad for nice weather because we are like
send us some sunshine this way. My garden needs it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's interesting because, I'm from Wichita, Kansas, and they had a tornado last weekend and it brought a whole bunch of rain. And my brother said, we really didn't mind all the rain. Like the tornado was a problem, but we didn't mind the rain at all because we've been struggling with drought. So I don't know. It's just like, I guess it could be worse. I don't know.
It could be worse.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to our podcast topic today. So what we're doing, so in the Empowered Weight Loss membership, we are working on developing a new empowered self-identity. So that's a lot of long words. And what I really mean by this is that we're learning to think about ourselves differently in a new empowered way. And this is actually one of my most favorite things to teach when it comes to helping people learn the skills that they need to keep weight off. I've already talked in previous podcasts about how your identity needs to shift from that of someone who's overweight and wants to lose weight to someone who's vibrant and healthy and doing what they need to do in order to stay vibrant and healthy, right? But there's actually a much deeper layer to this. And so when I teach this stuff in the membership, people always say that this is what made the most difference for them. So the heart of self-identity is your thoughts about yourself. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I want each person listening to this podcast to just stop for a moment and ask yourself, what thoughts are you thinking about yourself on a regular basis? Marchelle, if you had to answer that question, what would you say the balance of your thoughts about yourself is? And then I'll tell you what I discovered the balance of my thoughts were.
Are we talking about like after we lose weight or before we lose weight or just in general?
Just in general. Just in general.
Well, I still struggle with the negative self-talk.
Yeah. So what are the sentences that are going through your brain when you say negative self-talk?
Maybe negative self-talk wasn't the proper description. I just mean critical.
Critical.
Self-talk? Yeah. More critical, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your brain is saying things to you like, I didn't do that right, or like what kinds of things is your brain saying to you?
Mostly I think about if I did something good enough that other people would be proud of. I think that my mother, is a lot in my head. And when I think about whether, I don't know, I think it's very hard for me, no matter how much weight I've lost or, how long I've been doing this, I still have a really hard time like shedding my mother's criticism of whether or not I did something right, or if I did it the way maybe she would want me to, because even when I discuss things with her, I still, feel that she says, well, I would have done it this way, or I don't know. I think a lot of people do. I think that people think that they're giving good advice when they say things like that to you. And it just sort of resonates in my head. If I reach out to somebody and I talk with them about a situation that's going on in my life and they say, well, I would have maybe done it this way, or maybe you could have done it that way. To me, that automatically says I didn't do it good enough. And then that kind of carries through, several weeks.
Right. Yes. That is so true. That is exactly what our brains do. Like you have a normal brain. You have a normal brain. So some of us are hearing a parent. Some of us are hearing, a mother or a father, or maybe there's an ex-husband that we're hearing, or, there's our older sibling that we're hearing, who is just always criticizing us for whatever reason. A boss could be a boss.
A lot of people I know have bosses that they feel like they need to live up to a certain expectation, and they're very self-critical about that. And it really does not have anything to do with our weight at first.
Yeah.
But it's hard to overcome that.
So, well, I noticed that for me, I had a lot of self-critical thoughts. And I'm really working at correcting it now, but there are always thoughts running through my head like, I didn't do enough, or I should have done more, or I could have done a better job, or I don't know enough yet. I need to know more. I'm lacking in something. I should get up earlier. I should get more sleep. I'm not good at keeping up with my relationships. Like it just goes on and on and on. And basically the theme of all of these thoughts are, I'm not enough, right? And so I just want everybody listening to this to know that if you have a lot of self-critical thoughts, there's actually nothing wrong with you.
And I think also, I was just going to butt in here. I think that it's important for people to realize that maybe from my perspective, looking at like you, Angela, I always think, wow, she's so smart. She's done so much in her life. She's helped so many people, and I look up to you, right? And then for me to hear you say that you have self-critical thoughts, I feel like we all do it no matter where we're at in life. And it's important for, I think, all of us to realize that we all do it. You never arrive
right
to where you think that, okay, well, I'm better than everybody else. I got my shit together. Everything's good. I think we all do it to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the reason is because it's part of our normal human brain. Okay. So we evolved to survive. And so our brains have evolved to do whatever it takes to survive. So what that means is that we're always going to be on the alert for problems, and we're going to want to solve them so that we can survive. So these self-critical thoughts that we have, I could do it better. This should be different. I should be different. They're all just part of our normal human brain trying to help us survive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of does. But I do think in this modern day and age, I think that we do have a lot of pressure of social media, magazines, the fashion industry, giving a lot of pressure to what, the perfect size is, or how pretty you should be, or, they measure, your success on if you do this, this, and this. And I think that even more nowadays than ever.
Yes, I think it's been magnified. Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy what's happening. So, yeah. And think about this, so our media magnifies it. These negative thoughts kind of get reinforced by our parents and our caregivers and our teachers as we're growing up. We're taught from an early age that we should do this and we should do that. And we're often shamed, and I talked about this last week, we're often shamed into behavior that pleases other people. And I want all of us to know that our ideas about ourselves developed when we were really very young, before the ages of 5 or 10. And this is when our brain's neural pathways are developing. And so brain cells are making connections, and we're coming up with ideas about who we are and what we can expect from other people. And we're trying to, we're having all of these experiences in our families, and we're trying to make sense of the world. And so as young children, think about it, we're like really dependent on the adults around us. And we're trying to figure out, how am I going to survive? What do I need to do here? Is this world that I was born into a friendly world? How do I get my needs met? Maybe I do get them met. Maybe I don't get them met. And so we developed ideas and coping skills at very young ages so that we could get our needs for our survival needs like food and shelter and clothing and all of that. But we also have needs for love and belongingness. And so we developed skills at young ages and ideas for helping to get those needs met. Okay? Mm-hmm. So we make up these stories from the mind of a child. And I'm going to give you an example from my own life, this was a really painful thing that happened to me when I was little. And when I tell you the story, you're going to be like, oh, that's so cute, But for me, it was really painful. So I was 4 years old, and I remember this so vividly. I was playing, we had a little sandbox in our yard, and the neighbor boy, Kyle, was over, and we were playing together in the sandbox. And I said something to him. I have no idea what I said, but it hurt his feelings. And he ran home crying, and he left me alone in the sandbox. And I was so sad. I was just like, I've actually thought, Alone in the Sandbox could be a really good, country music song. A really good title for a country music song. I'm alone in the sandbox. So sad. And I felt like I had done something terrible, and my little primitive brain felt that my survival was at stake. And so I called through the fence, and I said, I'm sorry, come back and play. And his mom was at the door, and she said, well, he's pretty upset, and I don't think he wants to play anymore. And I just felt as terrible as any 4-year-old could feel. And I was so sad and alone, and I felt like it was all my fault. And so I made a decision on that day that I never wanted to be alone, and that I would do whatever it takes to make sure I didn't hurt other people's feelings. So think about what happens for someone who's had an experience like that. There's this underlying belief or this underlying thought about myself. I have to be careful or I'll be left alone, right? That was the decision that I had made based on that experience as a 4-year-old. Wow. And that decision followed me throughout the rest of my life. I was always vigilant and careful, and I became a real people pleaser. So underneath it all, people pleasing is a survival mechanism that we learn in childhood. It worked, right? It works. And it still works. But when we're so busy trying to please other people, we tend to neglect our own needs, and it becomes very difficult to do what we need to do in order to keep the weight off. And the other thing that happens is that we can't really be authentic in our relationships, right? So we're not telling our truth. And so our relationships become not very satisfying, and we can feel really alone. It's like this paradoxical result. When we're people pleasing, we're not authentic. And so then we don't really feel well known, and we feel alone. And then we use addictive foods and or alcohol to cope. Is that making sense?
Yeah. So I think that it could go really far back too, because I think that children that grew up in families that had a lot of arguing or turmoil,
yes,
and volatility, I believe that there's this coping mechanism called fawning, which is trying to be a mediator and a people pleaser.
Yeah.
We want to keep everything copacetic. So
Yeah.
I do believe that, that's something else that is carried through childhood, where you are always trying to make sure that everybody is happy around you so that you don't have to deal with the chaos.
Yes.
So that's another thing that we have to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like if you grew up in a household where there was alcohol or substance abuse and the behavior of people who are struggling with those addictions can be really unpredictable. And so then you're sitting there as a young child trying to manage all of this. And so I just want us all to understand, like there's so much that happens when we're young that we adapt to, and it carries through in terms of what we end up thinking about ourselves and what we end up thinking about our place in the world, right? And so really understanding all of this is a huge key, because if we don't know what was happening and how to cope with it, we're going to continue to use addictive foods or alcohol. And anybody can go on a diet for a little while, but we want to learn how to keep the weight off. Okay. So,
right.
Yeah. So, so these ideas that we have about ourselves and these thoughts that we have going through our heads can really thwart our efforts to keep the weight off. So most of us have absolutely no idea that this is what's going on under the surface, right? We have no idea that we're beating ourselves up all the time. It's like a fish swimming in tainted water who has no idea that the water is tainted. And there we are. And we're like, Here's another example. Like I have a friend who just had cataract surgery. She's had the surgery in one eye, and she's waiting to have the surgery in the other eye next week. And she told me that she was shocked at how bright everything seems when she closes the bad eye and looks through the good eye. Like all of a sudden, everything's super bright. And then when she looks through the bad eye and closes the good eye, she says it's like looking at everything through smoke. Right. And so this is kind of the way it is for us when we have these ideas about ourselves. We're looking at the world through sort of smoky eyes. And it's not until we really clear all of that up that we can really discover who it is that we really are, and we'll have much better success at keeping the weight off. All right. I think that's kind of the way it is when we have these false ideas about ourselves and all of these self-critical thoughts. It's just like poison, and we're seeing the world like we're seeing through smoke. And we wonder why it's so hard to stay away from the addictive foods that give us the dopamine hit.
Right. And this is so much more than just, making good eating choices, because I just wanted to reach out to one of our patients, and I'm not sure if she's going to listen to this or not, but I saw her last week, and I just really adore this girl. She's so talented and such a wonderful person. And we talked, and, we made small talk. It seemed like everything was going okay. Well, we're also friends on Facebook. And I came across a post of hers just a few days ago, and she just talked about how she has no hope, and she does not feel good about herself. Yeah. And she does not know how to pull herself out of it. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's because she slipped up and ate a pizza that day. It's something that, a lot of us really deeply deal with. And especially when we, base our worth on how we look on the outside, because that's what other people see. So we think, if we get that positive feedback from other people that we look good to them, or we seem stable to them, then that makes us feel like we're okay. And it just made me so sad, because when I saw her, my first impression was how good she looked, and she had a smile on her face, and she just seemed so confident. She had gotten a new job, and she's a musician. And then to see, like, a few days later, such a depressing post on Facebook about her and her self-image, and she just felt like she wasn't sure if she wanted to go on. This is not just something to skim over. This is a very, very important part of this this awareness.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I really want people to understand that I always say the weight loss journey, when done correctly, is a journey of very powerful personal evolution. And so it's like, there's so much more to this than just what you're eating. There's so much to what it is that you're thinking and how you're feeling about yourself. And what are these sentences going through your brain about who you are and what you are? And we want to really understand that. So there are some steps that you can take for those of you who are listening to this. I would encourage each of our listeners to do 3 things so that you can work at correcting any false ideas that you developed as a child, and help to correct the thoughts, the sentences that are going through your brain. So the first thing I would encourage you to do is to do some journaling first thing in the morning. So get a pen and paper. Maybe it's after you get home from work, but just start writing down these sentences, these thoughts that you're having about yourself, and just sort of do like a little excavation. What kinds of things do you say to yourself all day long? And do you have any idea where they may have come from? And again, we don't want to have any shame or judgment. We want to come at this with pure curiosity. I wonder what's going on in this brain of mine. And you're very objective about it. Like, what is my brain saying? And remember again that these self-critical thoughts are a normal survival mechanism, but we do need to correct them if we want to be successful at living a happy, joyous life and keeping the weight off, right?
Yeah, I think you should say that one more time when you are journaling, to not have the self-criticism, to just write down. Be
curious. Write down, be curious about what are the sentences that are actually going through your brain. Curiosity is going to be an emotional state from which you're going to learn so much. So you're not doing this out of shame or judgment or, oh God, it's another job I have to do. It's like, let's just get really, really curious about what are these thoughts that are going through my brain. Okay. And the next thing I would encourage you to do, and this is an exercise that I've learned from several teachers now, and they all talk about how effective it is, and I agree, is that you get a mirror, a handheld mirror, and you hold it up to yourself, and you look yourself in the eyes. And I will say the first time I did this, it was really difficult, but I've gotten really used to it now, and it's easy. But you look at yourself in the eyes and you just tell yourself how much you love yourself and how amazing you are. And you're going to be shocked at what opens up for you when you do this. You look at yourself with loving kindness and you tell yourself you're an amazing person and you're a gift to the world and to all those around you. You don't have to be perfect to be a gift to other people. You just have to be you, the authentic you. All you got to do is just look at a child. A child is a gift just by being themselves, and so are you. Okay?
That's not easy. Just to get out, just to look in the mirror every morning and just to say, I love you and I forgive you. Like the very first time that I did that in the mirror, I couldn't get through the second sentence. My voice cracked.
Yeah.
Because I did not feel it.
Yeah. That's normal.
It was rough.
Yeah. So you just remind yourself that you are an amazing gift and just say, I love you to yourself in the mirror. And it's so powerful because when you develop this sense of love for yourself, then you also develop a sense of respect for yourself and respect for your viewpoints and your wishes and your desires and your needs. And that's a powerfully empowered place to be.
How about we do a 10-day challenge? So
what?
anybody's listening, anybody's listening, I say we do a 10-day challenge every morning because we know that most of us get up and look in the mirror at some point. Just every time you look in the mirror, you say, I love you and I forgive you.
Well, you don't necessarily have to say, I forgive you, because
you don't have to say you forget. Not everybody.
No, there's nothing to forgive. Like, you're a human being. You get to make mistakes. Yeah.
I was talking to myself. That's something I do need to state. But yeah. So I'm going to do a 10-day
Just say,
challenge.
I love you. You're amazing. You're a gift to the world. And you just look yourself in the eyes and say that. So a 10-day challenge. I think that's a great idea, Marchelle. Awesome. Okay.
All right.
The last thing that I would recommend is that if you are ready for some deeper work, join us in the membership, because in the membership, we are working at all of this in a community of people, and you're getting support you're getting all kinds of classes, you're getting group support, you're getting individual coaching sessions. Like, you can really, really evolve yourself if you join us in the membership. You can learn these principles. You can apply these principles. It's one thing to listen to a podcast, and it's another thing to do the actual work, right? So if you're ready, I'd invite you to join us. All you have to do is go to JourneyBeyondWeightLoss.com and sign up. Your journey starts with the Done with Dieting Bootcamp. So just sign up for the bootcamp, and then you'll get access to everything that is in the membership, and that will be an awesome starting point for you. So, again, always remember that what you say to yourself and how you talk to yourself matters. Doesn't matter who you are in the world. Doesn't matter how much you've accomplished. Doesn't matter if you're male or female. It matters what you say to yourself all day, every day, and how you treat yourself.
Right. And it's just like, I feel like it's negativity comes so easily to, I don't know why, but it does. Being self-critical, telling ourselves we could have done things better.
Yeah.
But we can, so I think that I said this in a podcast way back.
Yeah.
What I had, this was in the Journey Beyond Weight Loss. The only way that I could accomplish this is if I created this, it looked like a little, miniature, like Wonder Woman, right?
Oh.
And when do you remember this?
Yeah. I think you did mention it on a previous podcast.
Yeah, because I could not figure out how I was going to stop the negative self-talk, because it just happened so easily for me all day long. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and it stems from, so many things.
Yeah.
Working on one step at a time.
Right.
So one thing is that I just pictured like this, I created this little, superhero, like this Wonder Woman. Okay. Uh-huh. And, she lives in my mind somewhere. Mm-hmm. And when I start to think of the negative self-talk, I would just bring her out, and she would just combat those negative thoughts. And then she would just automatically throw in something positive, even if it felt uncomfortable, because at first it felt ridiculous. I don't know why it felt ridiculous to tell myself that I did a good job rather than to say, you suck, you should have done that. Why was that so easy? But I really had to just picture like this woman, or it could be anything, whatever makes you feel empowered. Mm-hmm. But it was just, this little woman would come out, and she, she would just combat, like right off the bat, she would combat those thoughts, stop them. And then right then I would have to throw something positive in. And then after a while, it becomes more, I'm not saying that it'll never happen again to anybody, but what I am saying is that, practice makes better, practice makes progress. Mm-hmm. And also I believe that in return, you start to be more gentle with yourself, forgiving with yourself. And how that plays into eating is that when sometimes we slip, or, we make a bad decision, it's just so easy to beat ourselves up and then perpetuate that and feel like failure. But if you just don't entertain that, and like right when that happens, you just combat that with like your little superhero, And then you tell yourself, guess what? I can do the next right meal. I got this. I have some tools that I've been working on. I'm giving myself some time and some grace. And Angela, you say this so much better than I do, but just to give yourself some grace.
Yeah. You're saying it beautifully.
Process. Yeah. It doesn't. I'm learning some things from you. It is not easy, but it is possible, and I promise that it'll get you through so many more struggling times, especially like if you're going on vacation, or if there's a death in the family, or you're going to take care of your elderly parents, or you have like a family reunion. I know a lot of patients come back and, they really are hard on themselves because they pick themselves apart, and they come in and they want to tell me, all of the reasons why they didn't do as well as they thought that they should have. And that is not doing them any good at all.
Yeah.
All that's doing is just keeping them in this, in that trench of negative self-talk. So you don't even need to entertain it. Just find your little superhero, stop it right when it happens. And then whatever positive thought, it doesn't even matter what it is, like I have beautiful eyes. I have a great mind to think. I love to help people. I'm good at, taking care of my children. I'm strong today and I can make, a good decision, and you just have to practice that. And I promise it gets easier and easier, and you start and something starts to lift, and you start to feel lighter.
Yes.
And you start to get through these times, and it changes your identity.
It does. It's a process. It's a process of taking those old, well-worn thought pathways. If you think about how the brain works, like you have these pathways of thoughts that are very well-worn, and you're building new ones. You're building new thought pathways, and you just keep practicing and practicing and practicing. Before you know it, the new ones are just as strong as the old ones. And then even after a while, they become even stronger than the old pathways. And then you have a whole new identity.
Even if you pretend that you're talking to your best friend, like if your best friend came to you and said, I made a bad decision today, and and they start to get down on themselves. You're not going to let them do that. You're going to tell them how, all the positive things that they did, that day, and how strong they are. And you just need to get, back up on that horse and ride it. Yeah. And, if you could just talk to yourself the way that your best friend would talk to you. Yeah. And, then this becomes a lot easier.
For sure. Awesome. Thank you, Marchelle. That was awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast this week. Remember that what you say to yourself matters so much, and we will see you next week. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.